No, we were just talking about how Black Phone 2 opened up $27 million, which is better than the original did, which is always what you want to see with a sequel. But in an article that Deadline did about the success of Black Phone 2 at the box office this weekend, they threw in an interesting paragraph that was almost like a throwaway piece of data, but it caught me quite starkly. This is what they wrote in Deadline. I'll read the whole paragraph. Blumhouse Universal's Black Phone 2 was slightly bigger at 26.7 than the 26.5 million after Saturday's ease of 13% with 9.6 off Friday. It ended up making 27 million, but Blumhouse rightly gets its due. ComScore reports that year to date, horror movies have scared up $1.2 billion at the domestic box office, beating 2017's record of $1.16 billion, now onward to Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
Which is also Blumhouse.
Which is also a Blumhouse film. That was just a throwaway line, and they're saying, wait a minute. Because, you know, Rob, we've been talking about this, my goodness, with movies like Weapons and movies like Sinners and Bring Her Back. And
those are all original.
Conjuring, which wasn't an original, but
Conjuring and Final Destination also makes a ton of money.
Final Destination.
So we got both. And this.
Very quietly, you know, we've been talking about, and some people writing in saying, man, this is one of the best years ever for horror. Well, that may not be true when it comes to quality, because there's been some really quality stuff with horrors. Like, again, Weapons, Sinners, Final Destination, all of them great. But this is... apparently, without Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which is going to pad the lead, apparently box office-wise, this has been, in a year that has been a struggling year for the box office, 2025 is apparently the biggest box office year for horror. Rob, that little tidbit hit me rather hard. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Really? And I stopped and thought about it, because, you know, there was the year It came out. It made over $700 million. I guess horror didn't generate more than 500 million for the rest of the year. But Rob, you hear this number now, that this has now beaten the 2017 record. This is the highest grossing year ever for horror, and we still have more horror to come. Are you as surprised as I to hear that? What do you attribute it to? What do you think about this?
I wasn't surprised, and I have to say that this year began, it didn't make a ton of money, but Companion was one of a delightful surprise. I was looking forward to it because I'd read the script, but the movie, I thought the execution of that film exceeded the screenplay that was written. The script was good, but the director really outdid himself. So that started the year for me on a great note. And then, you know, you get to an auteurist vision like Sinners, a movie that I keep revisiting. That's, you know, it's one of those movies where if I've got
so good
10 minutes before I leave somewhere, I just pop in and watch little bits of it because I like the characters. Total original vision. Same with Weapons. You know, Zach Cregger follows up Barbarian. But then you have, after 14 years, the Final Destination franchise comes back, and they understand the assignment and deliver a wildly entertaining movie that probably is a lot more fun than it has any right to be, but so much fun. And then, you know, I think we live in I think the time in which we live, horror has always been defined by the era that the movies come out in. You know, 1975 or 4, when Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, we were in the post-Vietnam era. Mm-hmm. And we had seen, same with Romero's Night of the Living Dead, it came out when Americans were seeing body bags on nightly news. You know, and Watergate had happened, and the country was sort of in a state of turmoil. Well, now I think our country is all over the place. You never know whether there's a tariff today or there's troops marching into cities or whatever the hell's going on. So when people have the feeling that their real lives are sort of out of control, horror movies are a great way to, you can sort of, in a way, confront your fictitious fears. And in the end, usually people triumph. Sometimes they don't triumph, but and I think that horror movies are very cathartic, you know, and so they've often reflected the times in which they came out. And I think what's really interesting about the horror movies that we're getting today is they represent a lot of different they're very diverse in terms of the kind of movies they are. Sinners is very different from Weapons. This Black Phone 2 is very different from Weapons, which is very different from Companion.
Which is very different from Conjuring, which is very different than Together. Which
yeah. And like Together, another banger of a movie. And, Bone Lake. Which which I still haven't watched, but I want to see it. But people keep telling me how good it is, and so we're getting a lot of horror movies that are speaking to the audiences, and also they're not expensive to make.
Right.
Horror has always been, for the history of Hollywood, cheap, and when you make a good horror movie that connects for not a lot of money, that's why the slashers became huge. When Halloween became one of the biggest, most successful independent movies made at that time in 1978, this is a really great way for studios to spend. I mean, even you think about the most expensive one was like The Conjuring Last Rites was what, $55 million?
Yeah.
That's because it's the fourth in a franchise, but it's also the most successful in a franchise. And because that movie delivered, and that movie, interestingly enough, that had a really interesting, warm, familial component to it. Yeah. It was all about family. And family, more so than Fast and Furious 10 was. And it left you, even though it was a horror movie, the end of that movie was surprisingly uplifting. With a marriage, and you got to see people from the former films in the franchise.
But don't give it away.
Sorry.
I think, too, there has to be something to be said about the fact, like, I think everything you said is absolutely bang on. Like, when times are hard, the cathartic nature of horror movies can really become popular. But I also kind of want to point out that all the movies we've talked about, Sinners, Weapons, Bring Her Back, Together, Companion, I mean, these have all been really good.
They've been all, yes.
The quality of horror this year has been on point.
On point.
And that's got to help when, the next horror film comes out, And, I think, you see that momentum continue on with Black Phone 2, making more than its original did. I'm not a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie.
Yeah.
But it did so well.
I got to say, the second one looks better.
The second one does look better.
That trailer was in front of Black Phone.
And
I'm like,
it's going to make money too. It's going to make money too. And hopefully that kind of streak will continue. Guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Zapier. One of the biggest game changers of the past year has been AI. But let's be real, just talking about AI doesn't actually make your day any more productive. What does make it more productive is finding tools to put AI to work for you. And that's where Zapier comes in. Zapier is the easiest way to take AI and plug it directly into the apps and processes that you're already using every day. No IT bottlenecks, no complexity, just results. For me, it's been about saving time on repetitive stuff so I can focus on the work that matters and I actually enjoy. And it's not just me. Over 3.4 million companies are already using Zapier to streamline everything from sales and marketing to IT and HR. With their AI orchestration platform, you can connect top AI models like ChatGPT or Claude right into the apps you already use. So whether it's automatically enriching leads, coaching your sales team, or even resolving IT tickets, Zapier makes it simple. Guys, join the 3.4 million companies already automating with Zapier and transform how you work with Zapier and AI. Get started for free by visiting zapier.com/Campea. That's ZAPIER.com/Campea. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Apparently, according to Deadline, this year is already, and we're just in October, the highest grossing year ever at the box office for the horror genre. I mean, that was kind of stark when you considering the long history of horror. What do you guys make of it? What do you think contributed to that success? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.